Hey, welcome back to Warhammer Station. I'm Colin. Had a great weekend at the Lone Star Open. On the screen, you can see my army here that I played with as World Leaders. You know, they have a 30% win rate, and I actually did really well, I thought. Um, obviously not the best, but this first video is going to be just about the army I took, and then I'm going to do a video about day one and a video about day two. And I guess this should be about the Army and a little bit about the quality of the event and what the state of Warhammer is halfway through 2023. Um, so, yeah, let's get into that. So, I took a bunch of big stuff and all of it performed really, really well. Angron did amazing. The Terminators did what they were supposed to do. The cultists capped objectives all over the place, it felt like. And the Brigands were just all stars. They killed all kinds of stuff, just did tons of damage, murdered everything. They did so fantastic. And the Bloodthirster just did really, really well. Um, the So I just go units individually. Oh, and the Land Raider was absolutely fantastic. It was so hard to kill. Took so much damage. Took so many shots, and its output was kind of mediocre, but that's okay. What I used it for, in a lot of cases, it had two roles. If there was going to be a really tough Overwatch situation, it would run alongside something that I didn't want to die, like the Bloodthirster or Angron, and charge that. um, the Land Raider did really, really well. It did two primary things. What it was intended purpose in the list. It was damage output, soak up shots. More than two things, obviously. Um, Transport the jackals after capturing the home objective if it matters in the mission. Disgorge them out to another objective if they could. And it actually did really well in all of those roles. It was a fun tank. Oh, and the other thing was to assault something, like hopefully run alongside Angron or the Bloodthirster and assault something that they needed to kill first, so as to avoid Overwatch. And it worked really well in all those regards. A situation never arose where I had to assault it, or the one situation it did, it failed. The Brigands do what they do. They put out just a punishing amount of firepower. They did really well. They held objectives really well. They spawned objectives in the ritual. The Bloodthirster, the main tactic with this guy is to go up and kill big stuff and hopefully pile in and use its ability with the 4+ delivering mortals out. It's just got a big base. It just did so phenomenal in that regard, just delivering so much pain and damage. The Master of Executions, all he existed for was to re-roll the Blessings roll, and in all but one game, Angron didn't die, and another game, he didn't come back, and it didn't matter at that point anyway. I was just thoroughly beat, and so it didn't make any difference. The Terminators did what they were supposed to do, except in one game against the Custodes, and I'll get into that. And Angron, it's a dice game, not blaming those things necessarily, but there are a couple instances that it just didn't deliver. And I'll talk about that in their subsequent videos about the games. And but I mean, it was like a 70%, 80% where he just went off the chain and killed so much stuff. I was kind of down on the fly aspect, not being able to jump over ruins and whatnot, but he jumped over some enemy models that did really well that they thought might block him or something like that, and he can just jump over enemy models and do what he needs to do. And in one game, I even used him as an action to burn the objective in the scouring. So um, it worked really well. And I wish I were a little bit better of a player. I wish I were a little better of knowing other armies' rules a lot better and some of the missions a lot better. But that's why we play. Uh, the whole, all the games were tons of fun. Even the losses, even if there were bad beats, I think I did really well. Um, a lot of it is just my experience with the game and learning all the different aspects. Even to this list, as simple as it is, there's a lot to it to get good scores, and in some cases, the dice were a factor. Being able to reroll up into a successful invul or something that would change the game, or flubbing a wound roll, or getting lots of really good saves or really good feel no pains. Um, I'm super pleased with the list. I really don't know what I want to change with it outside. I've got a couple other events I want to go to, Wasteland Wars, and then one in Midland at the end of September. I hope kicks off. I'm having a really hard time understanding what to change with these lists, if anything, to make them better. I want to run 2 Terminator squads because they're really powerful and really fun. I think getting them to scout up would be very fun. But between Angron and Lord Immicatus and 2 Terminator squads, there's really not much left in the list to add. And I think I looked in Best Coast pairings. You can go on the app and type in knights, and it brings up everyone. You can sort by how many played what list, right? And so if you type in knights, 31 of the 200 players were knights. So I even faced 2 of them, and all of my friends who were there played against knights. Um, and then so like all this stuff does really well in killing knights, and if I take something out, I'm skeptical how well the list will perform against knights. And just so we're clear, that the top World Leaders player who went 5-1, and I mean you can tell just even that record alone and how the World Leaders perform, that's a monumental feat, and I don't want to take away anything from that. My point is, if you can go through the game system and see what his win path was, and it didn't include knights. His list was Angron and several squads of berserkers, the demon prince, and some rhinos, and a master of execution as well. And so I really would be curious to see how well that list did against knights. And to me, it's just this real, seems like kind of a folly of having expectations of building a list for whatever you might face during an event. And reality is, like, it's hard to balance all these different equations. I want to take stuff that does well. I want a chance at winning the whole thing, even though I know I'm not going to get there, right? I want a play with the models I want to play with. I want models that are effective, and it's really easy to fall into a trap of our corn berserkers effective. Well, the gentleman who went 5-1, he had mostly berserkers, and so they are, and so it really makes this like cognitive dissonance or brain freeze moment where, like, why is he able to be so successful? What would have happened if he'd have played knights? And so it's just this disconnect on how things are supposed to work. And I would have liked to have not faced knights. And he beat custodes, he beat gene scissor cults. So that seems like a huge feat. I didn't face him, but I had to play against 1 knights, and it was or I had to play against two Knights in a Custodes. I'll get in how those games went, and it was just crazy, crazy. What hearing somewhat other games people played against, like Gene Steeler Colts, or their Knights games, or against Eldar or something like that. I didn't have to play Eldar either, so I'm happy with that. Um, as far as the event goes, it's so fun to get to. I haven't played at a big event since last year, since November, and another one in Dallas, I think that same year. Uh, it's fun getting all these models painted up like they need to be. They're still not 100%. I need to finish out the Terminators and probably do some better things on the Bloodthirster. Um, there are a lot of nuances to these tournaments, and like there were cheaters, there were sketchy people, uh, not playing the rules that they were supposed to. But none of my games featured that, and so like I had a only one of my games kind of did, but it fell back on me for not calling anything out. And so this is one of the first tournaments where I wasn't totally wiped out. We finished at like 7 p.m. and got on the road and headed home 7 hours. And I'm a little tired, but by the end I was still having fun, and I wasn't just totally wiped out. And I'm only getting older. I played this game for a lot of years, and I've been to a lot of big events. I go for the fun. I know I'm not skilled enough to win. I don't usually have the models to just punish other stuff and get things really out there to be super effective. Um, but it's just crazy how many good people are out there. The quality of how these events are run, the whole veteran aspect of it. They had different teams. The United States Army had an esports team running out there. That's really cool to see those guys get after it. And it wasn't just 40K, it was Star Wars Legion, X-Wing, uh, Age of Sigmar, uh, Lord of the Rings was there, and I'd like to figure out how to play that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. War Games Live, doing the streaming there was really cool. Um, and everything was just super fun. I ran into another World Leaders player. I saw him out. He was running Lord of Skulls and a bunch of other in Angron and all the other stuff. His stuff looked really good. He had a bunch of good games, it looked like. And overall, the event was just amazing. It was tons of fun to see all the players there. It's fun to get to travel and go exist away from home and break out of those rigors of the day-to-day life, get to eat at a nice restaurant or something like that. But yeah. So that's my World Leaders list. That's my tactics and strategy a little bit. Again, on what one game, all my games went really well except for like scoring on one of them. I wish I'd paid closer attention to that, and I'll get into details on it. And if anybody wants to offer me some suggestions on how to, on some ideas, what it is I'm kind of, everyone runs up, he kills some stuff, he takes a lot of shots, he dies. I'm fine with all that, but doing it over and over and over, when I have other options, I can play demons, I can play Chaos Knights, I can play Guard, I can play Eldar. It's just some other stuff that I want to do that I think would be a lot more fun. And contrasting that with getting my World Leader score up, I'm at 94 points. I'd like to get up in the ranks. I think it'd be a lot of fun to play a lot of events and get things going. And I really want, but I need to evolve the list somehow. And it's kind of, GW's not going to update the stuff until September, and the Wasteland Wars event is in August, and so it feels kind of, I've got to spend the money on the entry, drive down there, stay at a hotel. I'm going to hang out with friends and all this stuff, but that's not the issue. But I want to do something that's going to bring me joy when I go to these events, and playing some of the same stuff over and over and over when I have an option not to is uh, it seems like not the best outcome that I want to pursue, if that makes sense. So if anybody has some suggestions, uh, I'm very open to that. Um, I don't want a net list per se, but the um, Corn Berserker list looks like a lot of fun. I don't know if I had it all painted by then, but if if I could learn how to be effective with that, and that's another thing. My primary practice opponents, I played against Knots a bunch, and so I don't want to have play games with them where I just get totally destroyed by this guy because he's learning, he's getting better too. And so if I don't bring something that could be competitive to him, I'm doing a disservice to him and a disservice to myself. So, um, so that's where I'm at. That's where things are going. The event was really cool. Thank you for checking out Warhammer Station. Things are growing and about to kick off with some terrain and some other stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and have a great day.